Hey guys, it's Sam, and welcome to Caps Lock, a podcast designed to help you live bigger, better, louder, and longer. Before we get started, I just want to thank you guys for listening and for giving this a chance and for coming here in pursuit of your best self. This is a space where we are going to grow together, and my hope is that it helps you go forward confidently, unapologetically, and with purpose. It's time to live your life in Caps Lock. If that mission feels aligned for you, hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode, and let's dive in. Today's guests are the founders of Alice Mushrooms, a mushroom chocolate company that won't make you trip, but it will make you feel better. Both founders left their careers, one in big pharma and the other in advertising, to pursue their interest in food as medicine. They knew about the versatile powers of mushrooms, but they were tired of the pills, bitter tinctures, unnatural gummies, and clumpy powders they saw in the supplement aisle. So in their home kitchen, they started formulating a mushroom-focused chocolate-based supplement that could be a fun, delicious, and effective part of any daily routine. Today, Alice Mushrooms offers chocolate bars for focus, sleep, and sex, and they've been featured in Forbes, The New York Times, Bon Appetit, Women's Wear Daily, and more. Today, we're going to talk all about food as medicine, the benefits of functional mushrooms, how to use them in your daily life, and lots more. So stay with us, and please join me in welcoming to the show Lindsay Goodstein and Charlotte Cruze. Hi, ladies. How was that? Did I get it all?
Amazing.
There's
So good.
so much. You have an
so
amazing
good.
resume.
Perfect.
It was easy. You made my job easy. Okay, I feel like there's always a natural starting point with a founder's story. And the story is like a how and why they started the company. And usually it goes problem, and then like you seek a solution, can't find solution or you don't like the solution, create solution or like a better, more appealing solution. So I just want to hear like the Alice Mushrooms version of that story.
Yeah,
Take it away.
I can kick it off.
Go ahead.
Started in my kitchen.
Yo, what the fuck? And then
Yeah.
When I read that in the email, I was like, no.
Yeah, it was pretty wild. My background was in big pharma, medical device. So I was in that wonderful world for 7 years.
Wow.
Yeah, and I honestly got super fed up with the industry. I took a complete turn in the opposite direction. Started doing a lot of, research at home on natural alternatives to pharmaceuticals. And that's when I found functional mushrooms and very quickly just became like obsessed with them.
Love.
Obsessed. It's just really because, they're addressing the underlying causes of health issues. And I came from a world of Band-Aids, of just covering things up, and so
Yeah.
got really intrigued.
You are speaking to my soul right now. Anyone who's listening will literally laugh out loud because I say that all the time. Like so much of medicine and like our medical system here is treating symptoms, not treating root causes. And I'm always like the biggest proponent of treating root causes. And you feel like functional mushrooms were doing that better than medicine?
Yeah, but the problem was I went to go look for a mushroom supplement and they were all very reminiscent of pharma. They were powders, they were pills, they were tinctures. There was nothing just tasted really good.
Yeah.
That could easily fit into my routine, and nothing had an instant effect.
Oh, interesting. And like, I'm sure the branding also was like kind of gross, right?
Exactly. It all felt like it was talking to one type of consumer.
Yeah.
It was very shroomy or biohackery or
Yeah.
psychedelic looking. There was nothing that just felt very approachable.
Totally.
That could bring more people into the fold that may have never even tried mushrooms before or even been interested.
Totally. Okay, and now how did you guys happen?
Yeah, so Charlotte and I, we met, very early days. I was literally in the kitchen, homeopathic doctor. We were opening up capsules, tasting things with our fingers.
I'm crying. This is like, it sounds like Breaking Bad.
Yeah, it was Breaking Bad days. And I went looking for my other half. And, I put a blurb out to everyone in my network. And this one guy that worked at Olipop, who we both know, was like, I have this girl, like she's in New York. And it was crazy timing because Charlotte had spent 10 years in media and marketing and she was pivoting away from her career at the same time. She was getting her master's in food studies at NYU.
Love.
So it was like, okay, let's marry food and pharma.
Totally. Well, I love a major career pivot. It's like I've had like 4 and I always talk about them. And every time I have a founder on here, I hear the same thing. Like so many people, it's almost crazy to me how many people who are super successful entrepreneurs didn't start out doing that, or like they studied something completely different in school, or like it wasn't their career. So I know you both really had big, pretty major career pivots that brought you here. I have a lot of listeners who are like very ambitious, want to pursue their passions, but it's really scary, I think, to take that leap and, leave your job in your stable corporate America kind of job and pursue your passions and ideally like make money on it. So I'd love to hear a little bit about how each of you managed to pull that off, but also like if you have any advice for people who are trying to do the same thing.
Yeah. I mean, this sounds really cheesy, but like the best things in life happen on the opposite side of fear. Doing things that make you uncomfortable, they seem really tough, but the best things come out of them. So I think leaving pharma and putting myself in an uncomfortable situation really put the fire under my ass to, kick it into gear. I think my best advice for anyone who's starting is to almost think of it like, when you're skiing down a mountain, like you don't want to look at the full mountain, just look at where you are right there. And so it's just one step at a time.
That's really
day by day, one task at a time. And so the task itself doesn't seem so big when you're just cutting it into smaller pieces.
Totally. I love that advice. What about you? Tell me.
Yeah. I mean, Lindsay was really brave and she has a higher fear tolerance than I do, which is why she was able to quit her job and just do it. I had to ease in a little bit, but I think for me, it's like I think nobody starts a company when they're like loving their current career. Right.
Totally.
And so I think it's kind of comforting to know like, okay, if you're miserable in what you're doing, that is just going to be fire that's going to fuel you. And I had just gotten so over what I was doing and every day was just bored, so bored.
God, I can't imagine living like, like that, like,
and
how do you stay there?
I'm so type A that like being bored is probably one of the biggest punishments, right?
Yeah.
And so I just had to channel that boredom into something and it made me when you're down at the bottom, that's when you figure out how to claw yourself up to the top. And so that's when I was like, okay, I just had to strip everything back and like what mattered. And that's when I started to figure out, okay, food is what matters. This is what I'm going to do. And I think, my version of which is like the more fear averse version, right? Is I was like, okay, I'm going to get a master's degree while I keep working. Totally. And so when you kind of put out into the world, right? Like here's a goal that I have. I'm now putting money and a lot of time towards it. That then starts to bring things around you. So it's like almost taking those outwardly concrete steps that can like have your community help tie you to something too.
Totally. And I feel like you don't necessarily have to have the inner confidence. Like fake it till you make it is so real. Like if you start taking the steps to make it work, you build the confidence that it's going to work. So I understand how we got to food as medicine, right? Like I see the through line, and I'm an equally big believer in making diet and lifestyle changes to heal instead of, like we said, patching up symptoms with medications. And there are tons and tons of natural remedies out there. For example, like coffee helps people focus, right? Tart cherry juice helps you fall asleep. So my question is, why mushrooms? And I feel like it's a little bit chicken or egg. Like, was it like, oh, I'm having problems focusing and falling asleep. What can fix this? Oh, like weird. Mushrooms do all of that. Or was it like, I think we want to do mushrooms and here are all the things mushrooms can fix. So let's turn each of these into its own kind of skew.
It was mushrooms. The mushrooms are really the star of the show in Alice. Functional mushrooms are incredible, and they work almost opposite to pharmaceuticals. The more you take them, the stronger they get. So it's different. Like if you're
not building a tolerance.
Exactly.
Huh.
So, looking at that, it was so obvious that this should be a part of everyone's daily regimen. The problem is, if you don't enjoy it, it's really hard to take it. So similar to pharmaceuticals where it was always hammered on our heads, the importance of the delivery method of a medication and how that's correlated to patient compliance, right? Like if you make something easy to take, they'll take it. And when I looked at the mushroom space, nothing felt easy. Everything felt like a chore. So really the idea behind Alice was to create something that tasted really good, included obviously functional mushrooms for daily use. But what was really the important piece to the puzzle here was instant effect. So what we've done is we've added in really potent herbal supplements and nootropics alongside the mushrooms so that you get instant effect, instant gratification, so that you have something to look forward to the next day. Because we really feel like you should indulge in wellness, you should enjoy wellness, and it doesn't have to feel like a chore.
Totally. I feel like I don't even like all the caffeinated beverages that I consume, but the reason I do is because of that instant effect. Like I look forward to feeling that way. I have to be careful with that because it sounds like now I'm addicted to caffeine.
I mean, caffeine is one of the most addictive substances, and it's endorsed and handed out at offices, and it's like encouraged, right? Which is fascinating because every other addictive substance is under regulation, under age restrictions, is illegal, right? But I mean, I could go on this, but like the drug of capitalism, right? It's like
you're speaking about, like, we'll off camera about this. I always say like we're not ready for that.
Yeah,
but 100%.
But I think that, you know, to Lindsay's point and to your point, right? We're all living in such a short attention span age. And so when there's something that's really good for us, like functional mushrooms, it's hard to communicate to people, and for people, you know, for one, for you to communicate, and two, for people to listen, that this is something you have to stick with. And this is something that takes 3 weeks to a month to start working. And you have to take it daily, and you need to think about the supplier that you're getting it from, and you need to trust the brand. And there's all these nuances. So our addition of the instant gratification is, yes, to kind of placate our desire for instant gratification, but to also help people overcome that hump. So it's like, yeah, I look forward to taking it every day. And we're like, we joke that we're like tricking people into taking care of themselves for the long term.
Totally.
Right?
Totally. So wait, when you say instant, like how long, I literally took one this morning, but I didn't count. How long is it typical to feel the effects of instant?
We're different.
Yeah.
Lindsay has a really fast metabolism.
Oh,
like 5-minute onset. So it really depends on your metabolism.
I'm like 30.
Okay.
And sometimes an hour for some people.
Wait, now I'm going to count. And it'll tell me how fast my metabolism is too.
Yeah. It'll be similar to like, you know, if you drink alcohol, like how quickly you feel a buzz.
Yeah.
You know, anything, even Advil, how quickly it takes effect.
Or I'm usually within like 30 minutes for caffeine, I was going to say.
Yeah.
So I'm like, as soon as it hits my lips.
That's a beautiful gift. I feel like. I mean, it's also good because you probably never overdo it.
Right.
You know, immediately. Interesting.
I overdo it regularly.
Yeah, that's literally why I stopped drinking.
Yeah.
Like I was just overdoing it. I can't keep doing this. So, okay. So the instant effects are usually within an hour, it sounds like. And you were just saying too that if you take it over time, I also think like the conversation, by the way, not to like completely get distracted in sidebar, but the conversation around like building a tolerance to medicine versus like compounding effects by taking more natural remedies is so interesting because I feel like that's a whole story about like synthetic versus natural. Like what's the benefit of taking a synthetic substance or medication to heal a symptom if over time it's just going to get less and less effective? You're going to need more and more of it. What a beautiful case to be made for natural remedies. How long does it take to start feeling the longer term benefits of taking the mushrooms? And I guess follow up, like does the short term effect hit harder when you're like a month into taking it?
I mean, the long-term benefits, those will take about 3 to 4 weeks of daily use.
Okay.
And that's because the nutrients the nutrients and compounds present in the functional mushrooms need time to build up in your system.
Okay.
So if you're familiar with adaptogens, it works in a similar way, right? I think everyone's like, oh yeah, ashwagandha takes 3 weeks.
Sure.
Functional mushrooms are the exact same.
Okay.
So I think that, you know, to your point, right, the other ingredients aren't going to start working harder once the functional mushrooms kick in, but you're going to be firing on all cylinders once the functional mushrooms kick in, right? Because after 3 or 4 weeks, when the functional mushrooms are in our brainstorm chocolate, you know, literally starting to regrow your brain and help you build new neural pathways and improve memory and cognition, then when you have the instant benefits of the little bit of added caffeine and the fatty acid we put in there for brain health, it's like, okay, everything is working in unison and harmony right now. Whereas before, you know, you had 2 of the 4 things working. Now you have all 4.
Oh my God. Gorgeous. This is making me very excited. I'm like, I'm so about like optimizing performance and health. And like, I spoke to Dr. Jonathan Leary, the founder of Remedy Place, a couple weeks ago. And he's so brilliant. But something he said really stuck with me. And I've been thinking about it ever since, which is that people don't really consider that there's no upper limit on how good you feel. He's like, there's a bottom, but there's no top. Like none of us have.
That's going to break me also.
Right. Yeah. Like almost none of us have truly ever felt as good as we can. Mm-hmm. And like you can always optimize. So I do kind of love the concept that like we're doing not just short term. This isn't just like instant and then it wears off. Like you're also building.
Yeah.
And you can really optimize how you feel with these. So you mentioned it a few minutes ago, but like, can you tell me a little bit about what nootropics are and adaptogens? Because I think everyone sees products everywhere that have those buzzwords on the outside and everyone's like, yeah, oh my God, I love adaptogen. And then you ask someone like, what do you think an adaptogen is? And they have no fucking idea.
Yeah.
And they can't define it. And something that's important to me for this show, the purposes of this show is like breaking down kind of the barrier of here's me. And then on the other side of this wall of understanding and transparency that doesn't exist in the industry, there's like that wall in between me and all these buzzwords. And I don't think enough people explain what they are before they use them to like manipulate you into buying things, right? They're like, oh, this is full of adaptogens. And you're like, great, I want 10.
Yeah.
What's an adaptogen?
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit, like, can you break that down for me a little?
Yeah, do you want to do adaptogens? I'll do nootropics.
Yeah.
Love.
So adaptogens, they're kind of nicely named, right? It's something that helps your body adapt better to whatever situation you're in. So there are a lot of different adaptogens out there. And I mean, ashwagandha is a really nice example, right? And we have that in our happy ending chocolate because of its ability to help regulate your stress levels. So essentially, if you have really high stress, you know, adaptogen is going to help bring you down and help your body adapt to that kind of level of homeostasis. Because I think what we're all kind of looking for, and this is something I work on all the time, is my highs are really high and my lows can be really low.
Yes.
And that pendulum that we get stuck on all of the time is really disruptive, not only just us emotionally, but our bodies. And so adaptogens help you keep that, like, you know, lower highs, but higher lows, right? And you're kind of at that steady state a lot more. And so that's what they work to help you do. And there are different adaptogens for different parts of that kind of homeostasis functioning, from stress to endocrine and all different parts
I
of
feel
your
like so
system.
many people could benefit from that. That resonates with me in such a big way. Like
Right.
I swing so hard on the pendulum, like almost like manic depressive. Like I'll have a day when I'm like running around, like buying coffee for the person in line behind me, like singing, dancing, like birds are chirping and landing on my shoulder. And then I'll have a day when like no one can be happy because I'm unhappy.
Yeah.
And Wolf knows I was having one of those yesterday. And I was in here like going on it was like a terror mission. But I feel like that's interesting because I think everyone could use a little bit of that.
Yeah.
But I also think like I would never be like, I particularly need adaptogens until understanding the definition a little bit better.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. Okay, tell me about nootropics.
Yeah, nootropics.
Tell me, I love to learn, you guys.
The quickest way to describe nootropics is a supplement for your brain.
Okay.
What's interesting though is that there's a lot of nootropics out there, and a lot of them actually can't. They're great for your brain. They actually can't get to your brain because our brains have this protective cell layer around it. It's like the Fort Knox of your brain.
Okay.
So it makes it really hard for bad things to get in. But the problem is a lot of good things can't get in either. But lion's mane is so molecularly light, it's able to cross the blood-brain barrier. And so it like triggers your nerve growth factor in your brain. So it's one of the only nootropics out there that can do that. And it also helps regrow your brain. So it's like pretty much how you teach an old dog new tricks.
Yeah, it's like a miracle is what it is.
Yeah.
I'm like, why are we not all talking about this already? I feel like nootropics and adaptogens, because they're used so frequently as buzzwords and are a little bit almost like confusing to people because I feel like they're almost used more in marketing than they are in education. I feel like probably there are a lot of misconceptions about this kind of product, right? Like a mushroom chocolate. And probably also everyone thinks they're like psychedelic, right?
Yeah.
Like the first question I asked Sydney when she set this up, I was like, are they psilocybin? Like, what are we talking about? She was like, no, ma'am, they are functional mushrooms. Like, we're not tripping balls on this podcast today. And I was like, okay, we could, but like,
But could
that's
we?
fine. Totally.
Like,
So tell me, like, what do you think some of the most common misconceptions are? Because something I love about your website is that there's so much information there that's just like there to educate. Like you guys have a glossary of terminology on your website. I was in nerd heaven. I was like reading your website for half an hour because I just thought it was interesting. So I feel like you probably do a lot of work to fight misconceptions.
Yeah, I think the most interesting misconception, I mean, there's obviously like, is this psychedelic? And I'd actually say though that, we launched this brand almost 2.5 years ago. We're now seeing that question less and less. And I think, I don't know if, we're helping educate or just the entire functional mushroom space is starting to have more and more of a moment. But I think that the consumer is starting to understand what this class of mushrooms is. So that's a win. But I honestly think the biggest thing people don't understand is that it takes time. And I know we've been talking about that so much, but there's that association rate where if a mushroom, people think, okay, there's culinary mushrooms and there's psychedelic mushrooms, and there's nothing in between.
Totally.
So if a functional mushroom that is a supplement or something that is good for me, the only way that they can conceptualize that working is right away, because they know psychedelics work right away.
Right.
And so we're having to kind of have that conversation that no, they don't work right away. You have to take them daily. They're completely different. And I think what other people, another thing people come up against, and this is just has to do with kind of science, is that we were never taught that there was a fungal kingdom, right? There's the plant and the animal kingdom, but the fungal kingdom is its entire own kingdom.
Really,
and
there
there's
are millions of kinds of mushrooms.
There's millions of mushrooms we haven't even discovered yet.
Wow.
So kind of the limit for, like you were saying earlier, the upper limit for feeling good, the upper limit on mushrooms, we don't know what it is. So I think kind of having that education that there is such a diverse array of mushrooms and so many different things that they can do. And it's as big as the animal kingdom.
Totally. I think I'm also understanding more and more why you're using the mushrooms, because I literally can't think of another natural plant where that applies. Like, I mean, of course, there are bajillions of different like species and kinds of things, but like functional is a really big part of that. Like, I can't think of a lot of things where it's like there are a million kinds of this and they all do different things to like help your body optimize. That's amazing. So I'm also curious, did you decide to put them in chocolate just because it's fun? Weren't you a DJ? Was it because everyone's doing chocolate mushrooms when you're DJing? Like, what was the reason?
So the chocolate actually came from the pharma approach, because chocolate, so when you look at food as medicine, it's so much more powerful than anything you can put in a capsule. If you were to take what we put into 1 square of chocolate and put it into capsule form and take that capsule, you're only able to absorb 8 to 12%. It's impossible to get 15% absorption.
What?
But if you take that and put it back in chocolate and start to chew the chocolate in your mouth, and the same way you would an apple, right? So your body's able to start to really transfer the nutrients, then you're actually able to get 70 to 80% absorption from what's in that supplement. Food as medicine is incredibly powerful. So chocolate, that's the first reason. Second,
I feel like lied to about every supplement I've ever taken. I knew absorption was a problem, and of course, like related partly to like all the fillers and stuff they put in there. But like,
why do you think your pee's so yellow? Because you can't absorb any of it. That's everything coming right out of you.
They have to pack
and that's
it
why
with
it's
so
like,
much.
If you ever wondered when you look at a multi, it's like 3,000% of daily value.
Yes. I've been like, that's crazy. I'm overdosing.
Yeah. No, it's because you can only absorb a tiny amount.
Get enough.
So any sort of, you always want to take your supplements in chewable form. Like we love gem as a multi supplement. It just, you get more bang for your buck.
Totally.
And then it's also so much more dense. So supplement wise, like if you were to take what we put in 1 square of chocolate into a gummy, you'd have to take like 6 or 7 gummies to get what we have there. And the taste is also incredibly dense as well. We can balance it out with cacao butter and coconut oil instead of sugar or dairy.
Love that.
So the approach is seamless, and we get the halo effect of being a chocolate mushroom.
Totally.
It stops people in their tracks. It stops the scroll.
Yeah. Well, first of all, it's very like, it's almost like cheeky, right? Because like my only experience with chocolate mushrooms is like the silly dance floor kind, not a functional kind. So that's kind of sexy. You're like, ooh, I'm doing chocolate mushrooms in the middle of my work day. Like, how cool am I? But also it feels like a treat. Like, I'm not like, I'll tell you what, I started taking supplements this year. I did like my blood work so that I could go and make sure like what all of my different levels were, see what kinds of supplements I need. And now every morning I take a handful of fucking horse pills. Yeah. And it's chalky and miserable, and it makes me nauseous. And I have to like, I can't take more than one at once because they're literally humongous and they're miserable. Like, how fun is this? You get to have like a little square of chocolate after breakfast.
Yeah,
What?
or whenever you want in the day, right? We have our sleep chocolate that I have as dessert every night before bed. Our energy chocolate, whenever throughout the day I want like a little after lunch snack or a little mid-morning snack. It's a really nice way to incorporate that into your day.
It's like a treat.
Exactly. And I think the thing about chocolate too, to come at this kind of from the food side, is that it creates a really amazing emotional connection with people. And I think that, we've seen so much resonance with our community with this brand that I think you can't get with a pill, right? Like, when was the last time you felt loyal to a pill?
Totally.
Or, there wasn't a prescription that was doing nice things for you, right? It's like, when was the last time where you're like, man, that magnesium pill, I want to go
Can't wait to take that tomorrow.
I want to go to a brand event for that. And I want to follow them on Instagram.
Totally. It's not cool. It's not sexy. It doesn't make me feel anything. If anything, I feel like I'm turned off because it's like so sterile and kind of yucky.
Right. And so we get to have this kind of beautiful place with our brand where we get to have an emotional connection with people, and we get to bring a moment of joy to their day with this delicious bite of chocolate that a supplement you'd never have that with.
Wait, so it's just literally just so fucking fun. Yeah. It's so fun. That's amazing. I'm having fun with that. Lindsay, I'm dying that you were cooking this in your kitchen in the beginning. We need to talk more about that. First of all, what? Yeah. Like, that's hilarious to me. And then, so I want to hear just about like what that experience was like. But then also when you guys started getting serious about like making and selling it, how did you formulate it? Like, I want to know what other sort of active ingredients are in the chocolate and like how you picked them.
Yes. So it started in the kitchen, but it did not end there. So
thank God. Yeah, you guys, the mushrooms you're having right now did not come out of my
kitchen. I hired a homeopathic doctor to come in and formulate with me every day.
You're like, I'll pay you cash under the table. No one has to know about this.
It was pretty wild. Like, he came over. I would order every supplement that he told me to pick people up and put people down, right? And we were just opening up capsules, tasting things with our fingers, melting down chocolate, putting it in chocolate, and then we'd go for walks down the boardwalk. And we would just kind of talk about how we feel.
Totally.
And then we would go home, we would go back and we would write in the notes and we'd like iterate on it. But obviously, like, that was, there was no chocolatier with us. Right. So the taste was like, it was really the Goldilocks approach, because we would make something and be like, wow, like, this really is strong. This feels great, but it tastes like garbage.
Totally. Garbage. You're like, we're getting the feeling, not enjoying.
Yeah. Or it like opposite, like it just tasted incredible and we felt nothing.
Yeah.
So that's like when, realized that we needed to bring in, chocolatiers, biochemists. Charlotte is like an assassin when it came to finding every supplier in the United States.
Okay, so you're like the Harriet the Spy. You're walking around with a magnifying glass. Yeah. Like, gotcha.
On the 78th page of Google.
Yeah. Story of my life. Yes. Okay, chocolatiers. That's kind of fun. Very Willy Wonka approach. Yeah. And so, like, what are the other things in the chocolate? Do they interact with the mushrooms? Like, is that part of the ingredient situation?
Yeah. So the mushrooms are the star of the show, right? So, for instance, in our nightcap chocolate, reishi is an incredible mushroom. It helps downregulate your sleep cycle over time. But then we also added in magnesium, zinc, L-theanine, and chamomile, which helps you fall and stay asleep on night one. So really, that's like our now and later approach to wellness. Like, you'll feel it now, but the real benefits come after daily use.
Totally. I did research all the ingredients that you advertise on your website because I'm obsessed with the sciencey stuff. And I was so pleasantly surprised to find that not only are all of these ingredients functional, but they're also often multifunctional and they're very complementary to each other. Like, besides what you were saying about, mixing like the reishi mushroom with L-theanine, chamomile, magnesium, zinc, like, besides just like the active ingredients plus mushrooms, even all the different mushrooms themselves are complementary. Like, I did so much research here that I'm not going to get into because I think everyone will be so tired of listening to me talk about it. But like the cordyceps mushrooms, I was reading them. The list of things it does goes on and on and on. Like, it talks about how they have anti-inflammatory properties. Yeah. They protect the hippocampus, which is like, for anyone listening, the part of your brain that's responsible for your memory. Also, like after ischemia, which is like when a part of your body can't get enough blood flow to function properly. So like when you have a brain ischemia, it means there's not enough blood going to your brain for it to function. After something like that, cordyceps can help regain normal function. Like, it literally sounds like magic. There was a really good one in here too. Phosphatidylserine.
Yeah,
the really
nailed
long
it.
one.
Said it-
Thanks,
said
Queen.
it well.
I did look that up. To be clear, I'm like Googling pronunciation.
Google pronunciation.
Yeah, because you should have seen me in the episode we did about nicotine. I was like trying to pronounce all these words on the fly. Don't recommend it. It was really bad. But this one is so interesting. So this is in the focus one. It is a fatty acid that improves alertness, reaction time, thinking speed, and focus. I love this one because it actually occurs naturally in the body.
Yeah.
And most of it does come from like a normal healthy diet or supplements because we only produce a little bit of it. But what I love about this one is it's often used to treat age-related decline in cognitive abilities. And in that same vein, it's most often used to treat Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
Like these are literally, this is medicine.
Lion's mane too.
This is crazy.
Yeah, lion's mane mushroom is seen a lot in early clinicals right now around Alzheimer's. And the cool thing about phosphatidylserine too is that doctors are starting to look at that for children who, instead of pumping them on ADHD meds, from 8 years old, what is something we could do a little bit naturally first? So like we get people coming to us all the time like, I didn't have to take my Adderall today.
Oh my God.
And we're like, hell yeah.
A gift.
Yeah.
I'm super ADHD unmedicated because like, I don't really feel like I'm the kind of person who wants to rely on medication to find equilibrium and to like feel normal. But also, it's literally my superpower.
Yeah.
Like this is why I can do what I do is because my brain is in 10 different places at once. So I've never really been into medication. I also have seen some like horror stories of people who went on the medication and a variety of things happened. Like I had someone in my life who's like a super happy, warm, confident, like positive, down-to-earth person become suicidal within 2 months of using a prescribed ADHD medication. And so I also feel like, the fact that this could possibly be used to treat ADHD symptoms, but then also at the same time, because of the complementary properties of the mushrooms, help you find that emotional equilibrium. That's huge because like part of the reason people don't want to medicate all the time for like anxiety, depression, ADHD is because it can fuck with your emotions so badly. Where on one end of the spectrum you feel nothing, which is really scary, or the other end, like for me, my ADHD, whether I'm treating it with something or not, part of my experience is like super heightened emotions. And so I can go like I said, really high and really low. So I feel like I just couldn't believe. I was so happy to see all the ingredients. Now, I have developed a little cult here, listeners, I'm talking about you, of people who like read and research the ingredients in everything they eat. Their skincare, their beauty products, like everything you could imagine. So besides like knowing what these ingredients are and what they do, we feel like it's just important to know where they come from. Can you tell me a little bit about sourcing, especially the mushrooms, I think?
Yeah. Our mushroom sourcing was the biggest thing for us when we were thinking about bringing this brand into the world. And I think, Lindsay and I both came into this, like I had only sourced food for, kind of like a restaurant-y type business, right? I had never sourced supplements. So this was a whole different ball game. And we, started requesting from all these different suppliers and, suppliers that a lot of functional mushroom brands, notable functional mushroom brands use. And we were getting functional mushroom powder that was so bad and such poor quality. We learned, we thought it was going to be like, okay, we'll try these 3 kind of big suppliers, we'll get samples and, whichever one tastes better and works better, easy, right? No, it took us another probably 6 to 8 months to lock that down.
Wow.
Because we were going to launch with something that we felt bad about, right?
Well, and you're positioning yourself also, by the way, as a wellness brand.
Right.
So like if the main active ingredient sucks, how does that speak to your wellness journey?
Right. And the sad truth is that a lot of people don't care.
Totally.
But we care.
Good. Hell yeah.
And I think, to get a little bit sciencey, because it sounds like it's like the functional mushroom space is fascinating because it is emerging, and that means that there's no set standards in it yet. So it's pretty much this kind of like citizen science regulation thing that the brands and whoever's sourcing has to take it upon themselves to take that extra step to make sure it's great. So what we see a lot is people growing their mushrooms on kind of like a sawdust or a poor substrate. Substrate is kind of what the soil equivalent to a mushroom is.
Okay.
So you can think of that as like, if we're talking about organic farming, right? The tomato that you get from a regeneratively farmed soil, an organically farmed soil, is a beautiful, vibrant red tomato that tastes really good and has way more nutrients in it. A tomato that you get from conventionally farmed soil full of pesticides, that tomato doesn't taste like anything, right? Like we've all had that tomato, right? It's the same with mushrooms. So if you're getting them from a bad substrate, that mushroom is not going to have as many nutrients in it. It will not be as impactful. So all of our mushrooms are grown on the substrate to which they would naturally grow in the wild. So like our reishi is grown on Dunwood logs, right? I didn't even know what a Dunwood log was before this.
Currently same. Yes.
But like, great. You know, that's how it grows.
Trust.
Then, you know, our mushrooms are USDA organic certified. The big thing though is that the extraction process and how that works. So, extraction takes time and money. And it is essentially, mushrooms are full of so much water that you need to dry the water out of them to get them down to their most potent compounds. And so when you get an extract, right, that's like a very concentrated amount of nutrients and compounds that you want. The problem is that during the extraction process, because it is time and money, a lot of companies will dump dextrin, which is a form of starch powder, onto the mushroom to speed up the drying process because it soaks up that liquid. But you end up getting a mushroom product that is filled with starch and dextrin. And the creepiest part about this is that dextrin tests a false positive for polysaccharides. Polysaccharides are what you do to test a mushroom, like a mushroom powder, to see how much mushrooms are in it, because mushrooms are high in polysaccharides. So it's this really kind of spooky way to get around anyone who wants to do their own third-party testing.
Oh,
Hate, right?
Big hate.
And so we were getting product, and then some suppliers are just like, let me just dump some extra starch in this to cut it even further.
Yeah, as a filler.
Because like, why not, right? Yeah, tons of filler. So we were just seeing so much of that, and we were like, this is crazy.
It also speaks right back to the supplement conversation that we've been having, right? Which is like everything's made of filler and gross stuff that you can't pronounce and you don't understand.
Exactly. So then it honestly happened super serendipitously. I went to a wedding and reconnected with an old buddy from college and was kind of like, yeah, we're trying to launch this business, but this is kind of a thorn in our side. He goes, I think I might know someone for you. Connects us to this woman who has a network of female-owned farms across the US, but also Scotland, Japan, whatever. She has a patented extraction process for mushrooms. The mushrooms are dried out in the sun, so they're super high in vitamin D. It was unlike anything we'd ever seen before. And once we met her, we were like, okay, done. This brand's ready to go.
Oh my God, weird. You get like a female-owned mushroom farm guy. Like you have, that's a crazy random connect.
And I just happened to be seated next to him at this dinner.
The universe was so on top of that for you.
On our side.
That is like such alignment. I can't even. I have never really been like fate, destiny, like you know, like that's never really been my thing. I'm so like rooted in like logic and planning and like you're in control of everything, right? But lately, I have felt like something like that just feels like reinforcement. Like you're doing the right thing. You're on the right path. Like that can't be an accident.
Totally.
How many people on the planet do you know who know someone with a network of global woman-owned organic mushroom farms with patented extraction processes? What?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I like the moment in my head when it happened is still so vivid. Like we're sitting in a restaurant in Telluride and like we're just at this like dark wooden table eating pasta. And he's like, I know someone.
I
can see it in my mind right now.
Sick. That's so sick. That's like an out-of-body experience. That's so crazy. Okay, so now I want to talk about, and like, this is controversial, I'm sure, and you probably like hear it a lot and you probably like fight it a lot, but in the supplement world, often with something like gummies, something fun, right? Like a chocolate or a gummy, less often I think with like a powder or a pill because people are like, okay, that's medicine. But when people see something packaged in a fun way, they're like, oh, it probably doesn't work. Or like they'll take it and even if it does work, they almost like don't want to believe it's working. Do you know what I mean? Like they're almost like fighting it. Like tell me about that. Like I feel like it works. I've tried the supplement, the chocolate ones for focus a couple times. I took one this morning. I've been firing on all fucking cylinders today. Like I've gotten so much done. I woke up at 6 and hit the ground running. So I feel like it works. But like, do you ever have to fight that in the world? Like how do you make sure it works? Like tell me about that.
I mean, I think we're just pretty intense about testing things.
You're just so serious about it.
It's just like we Lindsay particularly, like, she's so picky. And that's why this brand is so good, because nothing comes out of this that hasn't been like tested by the pickiest person with the highest standards.
Yeah.
Right. And like that, we just won't put anything out there that isn't exactly right.
Well, because then what's the fucking point? Then you're eating chocolate?
Right.
Like, okay, I guess.
Exactly. I mean, I think that people are surprised too when they see the product. Like you said, like people expect to get a supplement and for taking it to either suck and it work, or for taking it to be fun and it doesn't work.
Right.
So people
or they
are
have
really
to take it for like a year before they know, so they give up earlier.
So people are surprised. And I think pleasantly surprised when our stuff works. And I think, you know, if they don't feel it right away, that's a point where we can educate, right? Like with our nightcap chocolate, some people need to take 2. I take 2, right?
Totally.
I couldn't take 2 of our brainstorm because I would perish, but like some people take 2. Some people take 3. I met a woman the other day who takes 4 a day, and I was like, okay, ma'am.
A lot of coffee. Yeah. Girl is hyped up.
Yeah. But I think it's about finding that right approach for everyone, because no body is the same, right? Like we can't make a magic bullet that this 1 square of chocolate will cure all of your problems, right? You might need to play with your dosing a little bit. And you also might need to, like, hey, if you took 2 nightcap last night, but you were on your phone in bed until 1 a.m, sorry, there's not much else we can do there.
Totally.
You know?
You're not helping. Yeah.
Right. So it's like also helping people just create better routines and intentionality around what they're doing.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, the intentionality was like the most important thing in the beginning. We could have launched this brand like 9-10 months earlier, but we wanted to make sure it worked. And so we were just so specific with what we could do, especially in 1 square of chocolate, right? Like we didn't want to ask people to take more than 1 square.
Right, because then you're refilling it like every week.
Exactly. So that process was just so important to us, and we just kept going back to the drawing boards, like make it stronger, make it taste better. Like it was really a Goldilocks game.
But I tell you, only the best for this gal.
I'm obsessed with that. So like which ones are your guys' favorites? What do you use? Like how do you use them in your life? Like how do they work for you?
I mean, all of them every day, you know?
All of them every day?
All of them every day.
That's the goal.
That's
Wait,
really
I'm going to start doing that. Okay,
it's the Alice way.
I guess I have 3 pieces of chocolate a day now. This is awesome.
Yeah, I mean, one of the big reasons why, you know, I wanted to start this was because I, too, like I was working in pharmaceuticals, but also, you know, there's always pharmaceuticals pushed on me for something for sleep or for focus, you know, Adderall or, you know, Ambien. And I didn't want to do that anymore. I was just in a really unhealthy loop. And so creating something that actually worked that I could look forward to was just huge. It was such a passion behind this brand to begin with. So Brainstorm, you know, is really like an Adderall replacement.
Love.
That's really how we formulated it. That was like the idea in mind, is to make it feel like a clean, focused feeling. Both Charlotte and I, we are not huge caffeine girls because we get anxious and jittery. So we needed something that was like a smooth pick-me-up that really felt like you wouldn't come down in a crash.
Love.
And we wanted to own the afternoon. Really, that was the early days. We thought that Brainstorm was really going to be this only in the afternoon.
Yeah, you're like 4 p.m. crash when you're falling asleep at your desk.
Exactly. Like bite of something sweet after lunch. We needed to power through the last few hours of work. But really it's become now a morning and afternoon. You know, really it fits into that routine of whenever you're looking for that get-go. So that's the Brainstorm. And then Nightcap is every night before bed, 30 minutes. For me, 5 minutes.
Like instantly. Like if you take it out in the world, you will fall asleep at dinner. Totally.
And then
do not operate heavy machinery.
Correct. Totally.
And Happy Ending it's our sexual wellness supplement. So it's to be taken daily, and you can take it at any time of the day because there's no caffeine.
Love.
But we pack a punch in there. There's 9 aphrodisiacs in every square.
Whoa.
So we're not messing around.
Okay. That is a lot.
Because we needed to.
And you've tried that?
Yeah.
Okay.
We made it for all genders.
Love.
The idea is 1 square a day for overall sexual wellness, hormone balance, and you know, you're not gonna take 1 square. Like I take 1 square every day around 3 o'clock, right? I'm not like at 4 o'clock,
right?
Like, you know, on my couch,
right? Totally.
You know what I mean? Like knocking on my husband's door, right? It's like that's kind of the daily dose. If the secret menu, right, is take 2, 3, 4. before an intimate experience.
Okay.
And that's when you're like, banging on your husband's door, like, let me in there.
Get the blood flowing.
That's so fun. It sounds like they're very potent. Does either of you have like a story you want to share about it working?
I can share a story.
Yeah,
I can share one. I've never shared this story.
Oh, perfect. This is the time. Yeah.
But I feel like this is the time.
Okay, great.
Tune out, mom and dad.
Yeah. Please.
Yeah, like now's the time.
Marsha, no.
Marsha and Corey, please turn it off. When we formulated this, we obviously knew that it worked. Charlotte and I had a lot of conversations. It was always funny. We'd had to, take the product and like get on the phone and be like, and Charlotte always had a funny way of like describing if it worked or not. And for this one, she was like,
I would call Lindsay. She'd be like, do you think this one's working? And I go, yeah, I took it about an hour ago and I feel very aware of my private.
Aware of, yeah, that's what it was.
Not
I'm
aware.
very aware of them.
Very aware of my private.
They're hard to ignore.
No way.
Yeah. And I was like, okay. And I was like, that is the best way of describing this one. It was like very aware. Like you could just feel it,
Like
right?
sensitive,
Yes.
perhaps.
So we knew that. We knew that they
Good start.
worked. And this is the one that we went with. However, we hadn't had like a lot of real like trial with it yet.
Sure.
So
And you didn't believe me when we were, because remember when we were at the factory, when we were like doing our final formulations, we were trying them to make sure we got the taste right. And I was chewing them and spitting them out because I was like, I can't have more than 2.
I'm crying.
Because you hadn't had more than like 2 or 3 at that point. And I was like, I have, and I can't live like that.
I can't.
Yeah.
And all
our,
day.
a menace
our,
to
like,
society.
Husband is not here.
Marriott in Colorado, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Lindsay was like, "What?" And I was chewing them and spitting them out, and then she learned the hard way.
Oh,
Yeah.
you were not spitting them out. You were just eating them.
I was eating them in small bites. So
Okay.
yeah, that was at the factory. But then after our first production run, we very quickly got to New York to do press meetings. And we had a day where, our PR team like lined up. It was 5 or 6 meetings in a row at this one restaurant. And it was a chance for Charlotte and I to, show them the product and talk about the story. And, a way to get them to try it was at the end of, or the beginning of every meeting, I would cheers, and take the chocolate with them. Charlotte opted out of that.
I'll do this.
I'm all set.
I was like, I'll do this once or twice, and then I'm out.
So how many did you take?
So I ended up taking 6 of them.
Fuck up. And you were feeling this way after one?
Like 2
you
or
were
3,
feeling like aware after 2 or 3, and you had 6.
I had 5 or 6 of them, and we had meetings back to back to back in a row, telling our story, talking business. Like, it was not like I was feeling sexual at all.
Right.
I walked away, very much like kind of tired and like, okay, I'm ready to just get back to the hotel. I had booked a massage that was waiting for me at the hotel. And I got back there. I was like, okay, got undressed, laid down for the massage. It was like this older, very serious Russian man. And he was like,
Man.
lay down. I got on the bed. The moment, and nothing like this has ever happened to me before. The moment he pressed down on my legs, orgasms started flying out of me.
You're kidding. You're making this up.
I had one. I was obviously dead silent and didn't want him to know. I was so
You're,
embarrassed.
Clenching
I
your
was like,
jaw.
I was like, oh my gosh. But at the same time, like so happy. I'm like, wow.
You're like, this is the best day of my life.
Yeah, I'm like, this is incredible. I can't wait to share this like with the world because we hadn't actually launched it yet.
My God.
And so it happened, and then I was like, okay, I'm just gonna be quiet about it. And then it happened again.
No, it did not.
It happened twice. So then I got upset because I was like, I felt then like I
feel
felt
like I'm
weird.
violating.
So I said, excuse me, sir, like, do you mind not massaging my legs any longer?
Oh my God.
And he goes, 5 more minutes. 5 more minutes. And I go, okay. And then
Yes,
another
sir.
one. 3 in a row. And I was just like, wow.
Do you think he had any idea?
When he said 5 more minutes, I'm like, does he?
That man wants me to do it again. Like, that man is loving
But I
this.
didn't make a single noise. I don't know.
I'm crying.
But it felt,
I mean,
like
amazing.
I knew. It
Felt
felt
amazing.
amazing. And it was exciting that I was like, okay, these like really do work when you take, several of them before a sexual experience. But the ingredients are incredible for sexual wellness.
Yeah,
So that's why they're
totally.
such an amazing daily supplement. And there is no caffeine and it tastes incredible. They're spicy. So it could be taken whenever.
Did you call a happy ending before that experience or after that experience?
Actually, we
That's
haven't
so-
put two and two together that it was a massage.
Yeah, that was a happy ending.
That is literally, you had a happy ending by accident. Like
Yeah.
that man doesn't know you had a happy
I had
ending.
a happy
You
ending.
did.
I never even thought about that. You're
You
the first
did.
person.
Have a happy
doing that.
ending, unfortunately.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. So wait, okay, in terms of the sexual wellness, because like that's the best story I've ever heard, but also I want to hear about that, is like what ingredients are in there? Like how did you make something that balances your hormones? Like that's a pretty lofty assignment for a chocolate bar.
Yeah, I mean, we wanted it to be for all genders. So we knew we kind of had to take a mass or like
Yeah.
a large approach to the amount of ingredients we had in there.
Mhm.
Because our nightcap has 5 ingredients, Brainstorm has 4. This has 9. So we've never done something this kind of ambitious
Mhm.
and big before. But there's everything in there serves a specific purpose. And I
Okay.
think that's something that we've done in all of our formulations is we don't put any redundant ingredients in them.
Mhm.
Everything, like in our sleep chocolate, it's a really easy one to break down. Chamomile helps you feel drowsy and fall asleep. Magnesium relaxes your body. L-theanine calms your mind.
Mhm.
We put everything in there for a specific reason to complement each other. So we did that in Happy Ending as well. There's ingredients that boost testosterone. There's ingredients that help regulate estrogen. There's ingredients that help with sensitivity, right? The spice in there, the cinnamon and the cayenne, those are vasodilators, right? That helps
Okay.
increase blood flow. So does cordyceps.
Mhm.
So there's kind of something for everything in there. And
Okay.
I also think that approach is really important when you look at sexual wellness because with sleep and energy, there's kind of only a few reasons you might be struggling with those things. And
Right.
there's very clear-cut ways to help you with that. With sex, your issue might be stamina, your issue might be arousal, your issue might be stress.
Mm.
There's a million different things that kind of come into the bedroom with you.
And then on top of it, if it's for both genders, you're talking
Right.
about estrogen, testosterone, and like you have to think about everything.
Exactly.
Interesting. I'm obsessed with like hearing how they work. That's the funniest story I've ever heard in my entire life. I can't wait to cut that for social because that's going to be hilarious. But I'm just obsessed with the science part. Like I think it's so clear to me that you guys really did your research. And I like as consumer of product, I'm always like the ingredients have to be ethically and like smartly sourced. And then it has to work. Like those are kind of the two criteria. And it's crazy to me how many things are on the market that don't do one or both of those things.
We talk
Those
about
are
this
the
all the
only
time.
two things
Like,
that you
how?
need.
Like,
That's crazy.
how is it
And they get
possible?
venture backing and they
Yeah.
get national retail
Yeah, they're
distribution.
in
Yes,
every
they're-
Target.
yeah,
They're in all the Whole
Literally, they're
Foods,
on
and I'm
every
like,
end cap.
you don't
They're at the
taste
checkout.
good. You don't work.
Yeah, so like what?
And you're not ethically sourced.
So
How does that even
literally?
happen?
Why is anyone buying this stuff? I feel lied to. Okay.
Welcome to the American food system.
Yeah. Oh, girl, we could do this. Like, run it for another hour. Seriously, we could do that forever. Okay, so I know we briefly have like touched on this already, but I want to do a little mini deep dive. Mushrooms, especially in chocolate, like we said, are often associated with psychedelic effects. Like that's how people think of them. That's how people use them. Are you guys pro psychedelic mushrooms? Like we're pro functional mushrooms here. Do we like them? Like do you ever see Alice going psychedelic in addition to functional? Like what's your take on it?
Yeah, I mean, we completely support the use of psychedelic mushrooms. We do a give back to a company called the Hope Project.
I've heard of that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It basically what it is it's wrapped up with another foundation called Heroic Hearts.
Okay.
Which helps provide psychedelic treatment and assisted therapy for veterans. Hope is a part of that specifically focuses on military wives and female veterans who are often super traumatized but don't have kind of that safe feminine space to work through that trauma.
Totally.
So we donate a portion of sales to them and support them pretty regularly, which has been really amazing for us as founders to have the opportunity to give back.
Yeah.
I think that it's such an exciting space and time, and there's so much that needs to be done. But I think the legislation right now and the legalization process is incredibly messy.
Totally.
It's like one step forward, 10 steps back at all
it's the
times.
same with like THC. Like it's impossible.
Right. And I think, we definitely see our space in this broader conversation as a way to educate her on functional mushrooms, which then opens a lot of people's mind to, okay, if this functional mushroom can help me do this, maybe if I was scared of psychedelics before, I'm open to learning about that.
Totally.
So
I
our
feel
kind of larger mantra is making mushrooms mainstream.
safer.
And I think as we do that with functional mushrooms, that starts to open up a lot of conversations with people who might have had more closed minds before.
I love that.
The gateway.
Yeah.
Yeah. Alice is a gateway drug.
Yeah.
Totally. Cut that. We're getting really weird over here. Okay. I have one last question that I ask every single person who comes on this show. If everywhere you went, there was a word like floating above your head in caps lock, what would your word be?
Like laughter or fun.
I
Like
love that.
I want, because you say like if I go into a room and there's a word over here, it's like I want to be that place where people go and they have fun.
Yeah.
And I really like to have fun and I like to laugh. And like I think Lindsay does too. That's why we get along so well. Like we crack each other up constantly. And all of our work calls, we're kind of cracking up all the time.
Amazing.
And I think like that also kind of goes back to the business, right? Like fun. Like not everything has to be so serious all the time.
Totally. We're eating chocolate at lunch.
Right. Like you can do serious things in a fun way. And like we do really serious things. We help people sleep. We help people lock in and do their jobs. We help people have orgasms. Like these are all really serious things that people trust us with. But that doesn't mean it has to be somber.
Totally.
You can have fun.
I love that. That was great. And you know what? I think everyone takes that question really seriously and gives me a really serious word. And they'll give you something that like you need to hear the definition of afterwards. That's amazing.
Amazing.
I really think it speaks back to the product too. Like this isn't a pill. This isn't a powder. This isn't something gross. Like you just make being well fun.
Just have fun with it.
We're the fun corner at the party.
You're totally the fun
Indulge
girls.
in it.
Ladies, thank you so much for coming. This was so fun.
So fun.
So fun.
Thank you for having
Really
us.
fun. I'm dead. Thank you guys so much for listening. Talk soon.